Welcome to the Impact Players Linking Shields podcast with your host, Warren Maynard and John Beasley. Our mission is simple, inspiring men to be great husbands, fathers, and leaders by equipping them to thrive in the relationships that matter most.
Hey guys, and welcome back to another Linking Shields podcast by Impact Players. With me today is Caleb Collier. He is a distinguished U.S. Marine veteran. He's going to be sharing about his passion for speaking up about cultural issues. He's the host of the Church and State media platform, and we are so excited to have him be on the show. If this is your first time with us on the Linking Shields podcast, my name is Warren Maynard. I am the National Director of Impact Players, and Impact is all about inspiring men to be great husbands, fathers, and leaders by equipping them to thrive in the relationships that matter most. And what this podcast today is all about really is about men stepping up, being the thermostats and not just the thermometers in their homes, in their workplace, in their church, in their community. And how do we navigate some of those difficult relationships that we might have with people who are believing and speaking out about very different political, cultural, and religious ideologies and beliefs? And how do we do that in a way that really accomplishes the goal of bringing positive impact into our world? And there's really not anybody that I can think of that is a better person to dive into this subject than Caleb Collier. So a little bit about Caleb. He's a husband. He's a father. He's been married to his wife, Jill, since 2011. He's got 5 kids ranging from the ages of 22 and 8. So he definitely understands what it's like to raise kids in the culture that we're all a part of today. And now he leads a conservative political talk show called Church and State, where they discuss politics and Christianity and everything in between. I like how Caleb describes it. He says that he is on a mission to get Christians to engage culturally. So, Caleb, thank you so much for being a part of the Linking Shields podcast with us today.
I got to tell you, Warren, I really appreciate it, and especially all the nice words you said there. Before we began, can I just say that I've been really impressed with Impact Players. I've been actually on your website quite a bit as of late, kind of checking out some stuff, reading some of the blogs and articles that you've written. If we are going to change culturally what's going on, the first step is in the family. And
Yeah.
I fully recognize that. And so your work is so essential to actually getting Christians to engage, because if they're not engaging in their family, they're not going to engage in anything else. You know, I can't expect somebody to engage politically if their family's in shambles. And in fact, I would tell somebody if hey, you feel like you want to run for something, you want to get engaged in the Republican Party, how's your home life? Oh, that's in shambles. Go take care of that first and then come back.
Yeah, absolutely. You nailed it. And Caleb, you've got a background in the military. You were a U.S. Marine. And one of the things that we talk a lot about is every man needs a band of brothers. You know, that's a military expression. But I think that it's true in this world that we're in, because, you know, you and I have talked about in the past that this is a battle. It's a spiritual battle. There's a cultural component to it. But for men to try to engage in these types of things without a group of men around him that can encourage him, strengthen him, you know, lead him to stand up at the right times and know how to speak truth in the right ways. That's an important part of, you know, in engaging in this journey. And I know you've got some strong, you know, Christian brothers in your life. What has been that value for you of having a band of brothers around you?
I mean, it is so incredibly valuable for every man to have a group of individuals that they trust and that are going to walk with them and not be worldly. I know there's a lot of great movies out there, where you got the James Bond type characters or the Taken, I've got a special set of skills and
Yeah.
you're the Lone Ranger you're going to go after. I'm sorry to break it to you guys. I hate to rain on your parade, but those lone, warriors, they get shot in the back. They do. Like, these movies are false. No man is going to go on and take out 50 men because he's got the most skills. You need a group of people around you. And that's something that I saw certainly within the Marine Corps, band of brothers, individuals who had your back no matter what. Even if you didn't necessarily like the guy, when the
Mm.
mission came, we got each other's back.
Yeah.
And so when we look at Christianity, and sure, in the Marine Corps, you had that risk of going to war and maybe you're going to be in combat. I served. I actually got out 4 months after September 11th, but
Mm.
we're ramping up for going into Afghanistan, Iraq. So yeah, you had that possibility of getting shot at by these individuals who are now the enemy. Think about it in the spiritual sense. If the Iraqis or if the Afghanistans, the Afghanis, they don't like you. Think about how much more Satan hates you and his legions.
Mm.
These demons are coming at you daily. They are described as watchers. They observe you and everything that you do. Any lusts or sin nature that you might have that is a pitfall for you, they're going to hit you with it as often as they can. You got to have a group of men that you can go to that are probably struggling with the same thing you are, and to be able to have some conversations where there's no condemnation, but it's that speaking truth in love where, hey, brother, I had this same issue. This is what I did. It worked for me. I'm not trying to be pious. I'm not a Pharisee. Let's just sit down, maybe even have a beer together and
Yeah.
discuss this.
No, you're right. And, I've found that one of the most powerful set of words that I can say to any man that will take me from really being strangers to being friends very quickly is just simply this: tell me your story. Tell me your story. And, we talk a lot about within Impact Players that the key to really experiencing breakthrough is what we call audacious authenticity.
I
So
love
when
that.
guys are able to share their story authentically, it just invites trust, it invites relationship, intimacy, connection. And that's what brings men together so that they can fight next to each other, believing that we're all in this thing together. And so we always try to open up our podcast interviews with that simple question of tell me your story. So maybe just take 5 to 10 minutes to let our guys know a little bit of who Caleb Collier is and how you have arrived to the place that you're at now.
Yeah, I've got a bit of an interesting story. Some of it by my own actions, some of it just how I was born. A lot of it is just simply because I was never afraid to try. So let's go back to the beginning. I was actually born in a cult. A lot of people find that pretty interesting. It
Wow.
was in the Bay Area of California, and I was born in the '70s. So it was kind of during that time period. There'd been that Jesus freak hippie movement. A lot of people were really, really spiritual, and they were pursuing mysticism and esoteric knowledge, and a lot of these they came over to the Christian side of things, but then things got a little bit weird,
Mm.
and not throwing stones there, but my parents were part of it. My dad probably a little bit more than my mom. And we were actually visited by representatives of Jim Jones. So I like to tell people I came
Wow.
this coast to drinking the Kool-Aid, and I've been rejecting it ever since. Um,
Wow.
so it didn't last long. I have no memories of it. My parents got out of that when I was about 2 years old. But still, an interesting way to come into this life. From there, my dad had a real nomadic spirit. And so we moved around a lot, all over Northern California and then finally up to Washington State. But I was never anywhere longer than 4 years,
Mhm.
almost like a military brat, if you will.
Yeah.
What this did for me, unfortunately, well, it did two things. One has kind of shaped my life. The other led me down a little bit of a dark path. When you're the new kid, you can get bullied, and so I have grown up my whole life hating bullies. Um, this has served me in a lot of ways because as I grew up and wanted to continue to fight bullies, I realized most bullies move into government once they become adults and,
Mm.
and try to operate in a
Mm.
tyrannical sense. So I oppose that. The other thing that it did for me, unfortunately, is when you're the new kid, The one group that will always accept you is the bad kids. And
Mm,
so I fell in with a rough crowd, especially in high school. Started getting involved in drugs and alcohol, and I had a moment of clarity. I was expelled 2 years in a row, my junior year and senior year, and it was really going down a dark path. One of my friends got arrested and was sent to prison for 10 years. Another one of my friends had OD'd. Yeah, he survived it, but he OD'd. And I had a moment of clarity, and it was just like, I don't want this for my life. I got to get out of here. And so I joined the Marine Corps,
mm,
and it straightened me up, as you would expect. Really cool experience for me. But I knew going in that I only wanted to do 4 years.
mm,
Turns out I don't really like being told what to do. Shocker. So did my four, got out, and from there I worked a number of different jobs. I was an EMT for 7.5 years, so I didn't see any bad things in the Marine Corps, but I certainly saw a lot of blood and death and things like that while I was an EMT,
mm,
and burned out of that, and worked as a postman for a little bit, but then ultimately I got involved in politics and became a city councilman for my local city here. Did a couple of things that put my name on the map and made me a lot of enemies, and basically ensured that I wouldn't be in politics for very long.
mm,
But from there, literally a week after I got knocked out as a politician, I was offered a talk radio spot. So I've been
mm,
doing that ever since 2017, and I've also worked for a number of different political organizations at the national level, trying to get Christians to engage, trying to pursue conservatism, constitutionalism, and then, yeah, as you said, I'm married, 5 kids, 22, 19, 12, 10, and 8. And they keep me busy. I got a kid in hockey, got another kid in soccer. My little
mm,
daughter, my 8-year-old, who's got me completely wrapped around her finger. She's in acting. She's a thespian. So
mm.
I love it. I love being engaged with my kids.
Man, that's awesome. And thanks for sharing. And wow, you're right. What a very wild and interesting story. And it certainly has created this formula that produced who you are today. And the fact that now you do have this conservative political talk show bringing your faith and culture together. It's certainly something that I think a lot of men, find probably intriguing yet also intimidating, to think about being that guy to talk about their faith in certain circles and to talk about politics in certain circles. And here you are, you do it for a living. And I'm sure that has probably, made you a target of a lot of criticism and ire over the years. But you are a very outspoken and direct person when it comes to your Christian faith, your conservative political values. What you got the offer, but why did you decide that this was a message and a mission that you needed to pursue?
Well, it kind of goes back to what I was saying about despising bullies. If
Mm,
somebody tells me that I can't speak about something, right? They tell you all the time, if you want to keep things civil, don't talk about politics and religion. Well, what's more important than politics and religion? Like it literally shapes everything that you're doing.
mm,
And politics isn't everything. Politics is in marriage. Politics is in
mm,
business, in education. Like you're constantly dealing with politics. This person doesn't like this person. Oh, that's politics. You got to navigate that. And
mm,
so when I started seeing all of this opposition, both to Christianity and to our republic, our Constitution. We're not a democracy. That's a trigger word for me. But when I saw that, I knew I had to speak out. I've spent a lot of time. I'm kind of a nerd. I like to read things. I like to read the Bible. I like to study obscure biblical things. I like to read the Constitution. It's a
mm,
small little document. I have a favorite amendment. I know that that's nerdy, but I do. And so I knew that I had to oppose what was going on. And I do try to speak truth in love because that's what we're
mm,
directed to do biblically. But there's so much that I believe has to be addressed. And the reason we've gotten here is because Christians have remained largely silent.
mm,
John Adams, it's one of my favorite founding fathers quotes, but he said, "Our Constitution is made for a moral and religious people and is wholly inadequate to any other." Well, if we look at America and we're seeing cracks, we're seeing the system start to fail, it's because we've moved away from being a moral and religious people. And so we've got to go back to that. If we want to see, the Donald Trump, right, make America great again. If we want to see America be great again, we have to go back to our roots and we have to start honoring God and
Mm.
actually abiding by what the founding fathers described as natural law, right? The laws of nature and of nature's God. We can't violate natural law, things that God has established without severe repercussions. I oftentimes will use some humor to actually address this with people, but a natural law would be like mathematics, right? That's a natural
Mm.
law. We can look at our fingers. I'm a Marine, so I got to do it's very simple math. But 1 plus 1, that's 2. I can see that right there, right? But in modern education, kids are being taught that 1 plus 1 can equal 3 or 5 or whatever number,
Yeah.
so long as they can show how they got there. Well, I don't want to drive across a bridge designed by an engineer who believes that 1 plus 1 can equal 3. That
Yeah.
doesn't seem very safe to me. And one more example for you. This is one I use often. Um, I told you I was a politician. The audience now knows that. So let's just say I wanted to get back into politics. And I'm an astute politician because I've been at it for a while. So I poll the people that I want to represent. And I find out through the polling process that the number one desire of the people that I want to represent is the ability to fly. So I take that. And since I want to get elected, my campaign promise is if elected, I will suspend the laws of gravity.
Mm.
That sounds exciting. A lot of people, it resonates with them. And so what do? They vote for me. Well, here we are. We're at our campaign victory party. I won. And being a man of my word, I take everybody up to the roof of the building. I say, hey, as promised, I've suspended the laws of gravity. But being a gentleman, I'm going to let all of you jump first. Well, what's going to happen, right?
Yeah.
I can't violate God's law. And anybody dumb enough to actually take me up on that, well, they're going to get hurt, or depending on the height of the building, might actually die.
Welcome to Impact Players, where we inspire men to be great husbands, fathers, and leaders by equipping them to thrive in the relationships that matter most. Are you asking yourself, how do I become a better man? How can I grow as a husband and father? Can I succeed both at work and at home? We believe the answer is yes. Impact Players provides rock-solid answers and practical tools for men who want to improve in every area of life. Whether you're single, married, a new dad, or a grandfather, our men's groups, leadership training, and resources will help you thrive. Recent studies show men are struggling more than ever. That's why Impact Players is here. We offer cohorts where you can connect with real men like you, courses with actionable steps, and a nationwide community dedicated to winning at home and at work. Join our online community today and access a wealth of materials designed for your growth. Transform your life, impact your family, business, and community. Ready to get started? Visit impactplayers.org now. Be the man you are destined to be with Impact Players.
Yeah, talk about Jim Jones 2.0 with that. But no, I mean, you're right that there is this foundational aspect to politics that goes back to our faith. And if you eradicate not only the Christian faith, but the Judeo-Christian heritage, then you end up where we are today in many ways. And Caleb, you're kind of in an interesting place because you reside in Spokane, Washington. So Washington, we know, was the only state in the union to trend more liberal politically in the last election. And yet Spokane is Eastern Washington, which is more politically conservative than the more heavily dominated, Seattle area, which is, of course, the hub of a lot of liberal thought and ideology. So that kind of puts you in a unique place. You're somewhat in a more conservative town, but residing in a much more liberal state. So I can only presume that there have been many occasions where you've been, shamed, scolded, sidelined by the media, by culture at large. Why is this happening? Why are men kind of being told to sit down, be quiet? They're not allowed to speak out about anything because they're men, because they're conservative, whatever that might be, because they're Christian. What is driving this anti-man, speaking up type of movement, and why is it so important for men to push through those types of negative characterizations in order to actually get the truth out there?
Yeah, that's a big question, Warren. It's all by design, is truly what it is. If you look at the roots of Marxism, the one of the intended purposes is to destroy the family. How do you destroy the family? You go after the fathers first. All right. When you look at the Italian fascist Gramsci, his design is really what was placed in America. Well, not a revolution like what we saw with Russia or so many of these other countries. No, they believed that they should go after the institutions. And so
Mm,
that's was actually what was implemented in the United States. So you can see that Marxism started to infiltrate everything, education, politics, the seminary, unfortunately, as well.
mm,
And so a lot of these Marxist ideas were brought in, and then the media certainly had their place as well. You can look
mm,
back at the old television shows, Father Knows Best, things like that. They had a strong male role model there. And
mhm.
now when you look at it, well, actually, uh, we first saw where the man was a bumbling idiot that couldn't accomplish anything, right?
Yeah,
Or else, right? Even before that, you kind of had the Archie Bunkers, where yeah, they were funny, but man, they were kind of racist, and you didn't want to be that guy. From there, they went more towards the Homer Simpsons, right? Just a
yeah.
moron that can't even tie his shoes without his wife's help. And now we actually see the man is just entirely missing,
Mm,
generally speaking, right? They're just kind of gone. It's almost like
yeah.
the reverse of Disney, where the mother was always dead. Now it's just the guy's gone. So this is all by design. We have feminism, most certainly, that is taken root as well. Toxic masculinity,
Mhm.
and people, generally speaking, they're not comfortable getting attacked. Now I am. I mean, I've been attacked more times than I can remember. I've had more death threats than I can remember.
Mhm.
Okay, you can't threaten a Christian with a good time. If I die, I win.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
I don't want to be cavalier about it, but honestly, that's the
Mhm.
truth about it. Um, and so, yeah, there's men don't want to be attacked necessarily. They don't want to be told you're toxic, you're a racist, you're a xenophobe, like all these things. They're all by design, right? When if I were to call you, Warren, a racist or a sexist or a homophobe, it immediately puts you back on your heels and you start
Yes,
trying to defend yourself. No, I'm not
right.
that because I don't believe that, or I have this friend who's a different color or whatnot. That's the wrong mentality. Like somebody attacks you, you're winning, actually. And that's the truth about number one, Christianity, but also about conservatism, right? Those
Yes.
who follow that natural law, God's law, that Republican or representative form of government was first established by God, going all the way back to Exodus 18 with
Mm,
Jethro and Moses, and it worked, right? That's the system of government that God. It's the best system of government for the fallen world until the King returns. And so, if we know that we're standing on these truths, then if somebody calls you a name, who cares? Push through it,
yeah.
actually bypass the question entirely and stick to the points because when they attack you like that, it means you're winning.
Man, I mean, you really just sparked for me some thoughts, and I've said for the last several years, I think I really started to really take notice of this around 2016, but just this whole idea that let's take something good and call it bad, and let's take something bad and call it good. It reminds me of this verse from Isaiah chapter 5, verse 20. It says, woe to those who call evil good and good evil, who put darkness for light and light for darkness, who put bitter for sweet and sweet for bitter. And what I've seen is that the culture, and I think this is all driven by our spiritual enemy, the culture has been brilliant in saying, hey, if you stand for marriage, then you are evil. If you stand for uh, male and female genders, then you are evil. If you stand for sexual purity, you are evil. And the opposite of that is true, is that if you stand for, um, you know, gender dysphoria, if you stand for, uh, sexual infidelity, if you stand for, all of these different things, then you're to be celebrated. And so you're absolutely right. What's happened is good, solid Christian men who, for most of their lives, were affirmed that by being good, solid Christian men, they were doing good. All of a sudden, we're being told, you are evil, you are bad, you are wrong, you're what's wrong with the world today. And my observation, Caleb, is that a lot of men got knocked back. They didn't know what to do. They kind of were, a little bit kind of emotionally, knocked out and dizzy in a way, almost like an emotional concussion. They didn't know what to do. And now it seems like men are starting to kind of go, okay, enough is enough. Like, you know, I've taken a look at the mirror. I'm not the bad guy here. I'm not what's wrong with the world. That was a lie. So now I need to speak up. Now I need to stand up. And guys like you are really showing men how to do that. And it's not just men, but this is a show for men to step into that role as husbands and fathers and leaders. And so I wonder, like, as you kind of get up every day to do this work of church and state and bringing together culture, politics, Christianity into a dialogue, what is your end goal with all of this? Like, what are you hoping to accomplish by speaking up the way that you do? And what should men be motivated uh, to try to accomplish by speaking up in their own families or their own church or workplace as well?
Warren, I love so much of what you said, and I'm going to answer your question. But if you'd allow me, I'd love to address something that you said at the beginning of
Yeah.
your comments there. There's another element there as well that we have to deal with within the church.
Mm.
A lot of guys will look at the evils of the world and they'll feel that stirring, right? And I believe it's the Holy Spirit stirring in their hearts that somebody ought to do something, and I can't wait anymore. Why can't that someone be me? But the devil creeps in and says, he fills you full of doubt, and he says,
Mm.
you can't address this because then you're going to get attacked. And what about this in your past?
Mm.
Right? Maybe you struggle with alcohol, maybe you struggle with lust, maybe gambling, whatever it was. Maybe, you were an adulterer or, whatever it may have looked like, right? And certainly people can attack you over your past. But the beautiful thing about the Bible is that we're told we're made new. Our sins are washed away from us.
Yeah.
They're as far as from the east as from the west. And unfortunately, within the church, we see actually, um, well, there's almost a hierarchy to sin that has been established, right? If
Mm.
you go into church and you say something like, I struggle with gambling, or I'm a drug addict, a lot of churches, oh, let's gather around this person, let's support this person. But then there's almost a line, and so like if you come into a church and you say I committed adultery or I'm a homosexual or something like that, ooh, that's a little bit too far. We don't want to be around somebody like that.
Yeah.
We got to address that, because if we truly believe that every single one of us is a sinner, and it doesn't matter what the sin is, if you look at a woman with lust, that's the same as committing adultery. Those are Jesus's words, not mine. Well, then we need to recognize that, hey, every single one of us has failed in some way or another, right? We can't be looking to man as salvation, as a savior figure.
Yeah.
No, it requires us to just get engaged and to stop throwing stones at our own people, and
Yeah.
maybe do something that the liberals, unfortunately, are actually a lot better at, circling the wagon. Now, I'm not talking necessarily about, we've got, these issues with like IHOP and Bickle and all this stuff. And look, if there's some terrible sin that has occurred within a ministry, yeah, it's appropriate for that minister to step away. But do we
Right.
believe that he can be redeemed, that he can be healed? Absolutely. And when he is, hey, let's not, no, you did that a while ago and I don't want anything to do with, no, let's celebrate that if they've actually had that change of heart. So that was on my heart. I had to share that. Now I'll get back
Yeah,
to
no, I
answer your
appreciate
question.
that.
Although
And
I can pause if you want to address that as well.
no, I think you're right. Like, shame is one of the great demotivators in the lives of all men, and so men feel a stirring to do something, to make a difference, to serve the kingdom, to go into ministry. But then shame, which is the voice of the accuser of the brethren, that's saying, if you do this, then you will be exposed. You will be revealed as a fraud. You will be revealed as a liar. And as a result, everything that you do for God will get discredited and thrown away. And I think that's a reality that men have to face. And so that's why we talk about, as men, we've got to practice this audacious authenticity. We've got to be honest, because our lies only have power over us as long as they stay in the dark. And
Mhm.
so, men, you've got something that you're ashamed of, something that you feel like is holding you back. The secret to experiencing victory in that is not by doing a better job of hiding it and forgetting about it. It's just bringing it into the light, and then it's saying, okay, that has been covered and forgiven by the blood of Christ. Now I can move forward. That that sin is now a part of the testimony of what God has done. And again, not to get too spiritual and preachy about this, but we have overcome the enemy, by the blood of the lamb and by the word of our testimony. And so when we receive the forgiveness of God, and then when we speak out what God has done for us, that's where our power comes from.
If you really want to look at it, Warren, whether it's within Christian heroes or secular heroes, every single man that's ever done anything that they've accomplished great things that we admire, every single one of them has had failures in their life. And what's the
Yeah.
difference between them and everybody else? They got back up, they dusted themselves off, and they
Yeah.
kept going. And
Yeah.
that's the mentality that we need. Look, if you're a Christian, you're watching this show, and somebody calls you a liar or whatever, yeah, I was, or I am still. I mean, I'm still in this flesh suit, right? I still struggle with a lot of things, but God, right? And
Yeah.
that's it. But God,
Yeah.
right there. He's redeemed me. I am one of His. That's
Mhm.
really what it comes down to. So now, to answer your question as far as what I want to accomplish and really kind of my day, like I typically get up and I like to ask God, what would you have me do
Mhm.
today? And I got to be honest, He downloads a lot of things to me. A lot of the discussions that I have on church and state, they're not
Mhm.
my ideas. I'll be in church or in prayer or reading my Bible, and all of a sudden something will just right there. That's what you're going to talk about. And so I follow him because I believe if I don't, it probably gets taken away from me. So that's how I kind of process my day and what I'm going to be
Mhm.
discussing on church and state. But really, the goal of what I'm doing here is there's a hole in media that needs to be filled. Now we've seen the death, or at least the rumblings of the death of mainstream media. People
Mhm.
aren't watching CNN, they're not watching MSNBC, they're not reading the Wall Street Journal or New York Times because they can't be trusted. And I think most Americans are waking up to that, whether you're a Christian or not.
Mhm.
With that being said, Christian patriotism, it's under attack right now. You get called a Christian nationalist and whatnot, and you want to create a theocracy. No, no, we don't. We want to recreate the republic. We want law. We want a nation of laws where, hey, under the First Amendment, you're free to worship God as you see fit.
Yeah.
That's our perspective there as Christians and as patriots. And so there is that hole Without going too far into it, there is some modern heresies that have entered into the churches, specifically the churches that are engaging culturally, that are maybe a little bit more of a man centric theology.
Mm,
And so, what I want to do is through church and state point people to biblical truths, to those natural laws, to people getting engaged. If there's a cultural issue, start at that local level. Get
mm,
engaged in the school board, because there's a lot of problems there. Because of what's happened with the attacks on masculinity, I can tell you from experience, the vast majority of people that are engaged at that local level politically are women. It's
mm,
the mama bears. And you know what the mama bears want? They want Papa Bear. And so I'm trying to get men to engage in that. Hey, if you're concerned about your kids' education, if you're concerned at what's happening with taxes, I live in actually the most taxed state in the entire union. If you're worried about that, if you're concerned about that, go get engaged. Not everybody, we're given different talents.
yeah.
Not everybody's going to go be that politician. Not everybody has that voice, but every single person can get engaged in some way or another. Maybe you're an introvert and you
Yeah.
like to do research. Hey, you know what? Somebody like me, I need that. I need somebody that can actually, hey, here's your data points. Okay, because oftentimes I wing it, and so
Mm.
people have talents and skills that they can contribute to, being a part of the church or engaging culturally. And that's what I want to do here on Church and State.
Well, it's much needed, and especially in a place like Washington where, impact players started in Washington. It's got a thriving group in the Seattle area. And, I've had hundreds of conversations with men over the last, 4.5, 5 years about those things. How do I navigate these difficult conversations, whether it be with an adult daughter or son who's gone in a completely different direction from a worldview perspective, to what do I do? This company that I work for is, really pushing these ideologies that are against what I believe. There's a lot of guys and their wives that are asking the question, should we even stay here? Do we need to get out of here because of what this is doing to us, um, spiritually and emotionally? And so to have somebody like you who can, help articulate some of the thinking in a helpful way to address the issues, to give people a perspective on this that is not being, paid for by a political, lobbyist of some kind. I think it's a profound gift to our culture. So thank you for doing what you do. I'm sure that there are days where you question whether or not you want to keep doing it, and there are probably days that you wonder if it's making any difference. But I have no doubt that um, you are you are in the right place for the right season, and God is using you in mighty ways. So, as we wrap this up, just maybe just share with guys how they can follow you, how they can learn more about church and state, and any just final encouragements that you would give to men on this subject today about speaking up and speaking out for what truly matters to you.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, I mean, I don't know how to stop. I'll never quit doing what I'm doing. I will admit sometimes I do flirt with the idea of moving out of Washington State. South
Mm.
Carolina looks real nice. I gotta
Yeah.
be honest with you. Especially the older I get, the more I'm starting to hate the cold. So I might, move states that might be in my future, but I'm never gonna stop doing what I'm doing.
Yeah.
I don't know how to. That's the way God built me. If people want to follow us and support us, our website is churchandstate.media. You can check through there. We've got a number of affiliates. All of our shows are uploaded there. And then, of course, there's that donate button because we are part of the National Religious Broadcasters Television Network now. So we're actually being broadcasted in homes all across America, but that does cost actually a lot of money. You
Mm.
can follow us on Facebook. We're Church and State 1776. Instagram, same thing. On X, I'm Chris, my producer's gonna have to jump in here. I forget. One Church in State, just the letter N, and then I think we're on TikTok too. I'm everywhere. I don't actually love all that social media, but we're uploading the shows there, so people can definitely watch us there. And lastly, that word of encouragement. Look, God created us in His image, and He wants us to be active within His creation. Clearly, when you read through the Bible, you can see that all of these individuals who stepped up and made a lot of mistakes, right? I mean, how many times did the apostles mess things up and Jesus had to rebuke them with love and set them back on the right course? But look at what all these men accomplished and what they sacrificed in order to bring Christianity to the entire world. Every single one of us can take that step. It's just that first step can be the hardest one. And so get a little bit out of your comfort zone. And it doesn't even have to look like something like what Warren's doing or what I'm doing. Take that step towards your wife initially. That's honestly, that's the best advice I can give. Look, you're struggling with your marriage, or maybe you started out so in love, and what happened to the passion? Well, do something about it, man. Like, take that step towards your wife, because guess what? She's starving for it. She's dreaming about you taking that step. Go grab her, embrace her, and just tell her, I love you, and I want this marriage to work, and I'm willing to do anything. Right there, that is life-changing. That can take a marriage that is on the complete rocks and can move it to where people are looking at that marriage to your wife and you, and you're like, what are you guys doing? And there it goes, right? Oh, well, this is what we do. And then suddenly the church is asking you, hey, can you lead a marriage course for us? You guys really have it together. Well, we don't, but God, God's helping us, right? That's the kind of thing. Just that one simple step of going towards your wife and saying, I love you and I want to make this work can lead to amazing things. So just try something. Don't be afraid to try. And who knows what God has in store for your life.
Wow, Caleb, great word. One simple step. Guys, what's your one simple step today? Is it to embrace your wife and tell her that you love her and give her a vision for what kind of a marriage you want to have? Is it to reach out to your kids and to tell them how much you love them and how much you believe in them and that you want to be the kind of dad that they need and that you want to be? What is that one step? Take that step today. Caleb, thank you so much for inspiring our men through this podcast. Guys, please be sure to check out Caleb's show, Church and State. I had the joy of being able to be a guest on the show a few weeks ago. It was an absolute joy, but absolutely encourage you men to get behind Church and State, help it grow, and share it with your friends and neighbors as well. This has been such a great episode today. Thank you for listening to the Linking Shields podcast. If you like this podcast, please be sure to like, subscribe, rate, review, and help us grow this in new areas throughout the country. If you're looking for a group of men, a band of brothers that you can do life with, come check us out at Impact Players. Find out about joining one of our online Impact cohorts. Find out about where we're offering cohorts all across the country. And if you don't see one in your neighborhood, reach out to us. We'll help you, give you the resources to get a cohort started, because we believe that every man needs a band of brothers. Thank you again. Thank you, Caleb. And we will catch you guys next time.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us for the Impact Players Linking Shields podcast. We hope you're inspired to become a better husband, father, and leader. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, leave a 5-star review, and hit the notification bell so you never miss an episode. Stay connected and continue your journey with us. Visit impactplayers.org for more resources and updates. Thanks for being a part of the Impact Players community. Keep thriving in the relationships that matter most.